Good morning. Welcome to the third in a series of live virtual town hall meetings. Today's focus will be on our graduate students and graduate programs. I'm David Newman, Interim Provost and Vice President of Academic Affairs at SUNY ESF. Joining me today are Scott Shannon, Dean of the Graduate School, and Kim Armani, Assistant Dean of the Graduate School. We are coming to you live this morning and are taking your questions via the chat function on YouTube, as well as via email. If you would like to submit a question via email, please use the address dnewman, D-N-E-W-M-A-N, @esf.edu. We will try to get to as many of your questions before we go off the air just after noon today. If not, we will review the chat room and post a response or respond to your email questions in a timely manner. I want to remind you that we have additional town hall meetings coming up in the next few weeks. We will address health and safety next week, followed by student life, and then rounding up with a discussion of finances for the college on August 12th. So, let's begin our conversation today about our graduate program. We'll start first with Scott. Scott has been Dean of the Graduate School since 2008, but he first came to ESF as a faculty member in 1988. He's double green, I guess. He's got his bachelor's from Syracuse University, a BLA from ESF, and an MLA from ESF. So, Scott, please begin.
Thank you. Good morning. Welcome to the new normal that none of us at ESF ever really envisioned, and certainly that none of us really want, but it's the new normal that we have. We all need to make the best of this situation and try to live and work as safely and as productively and with all the optimism and hope that we can muster to get through these difficult times. First, let me emphasize, the health and safety of all ESF graduate students, employees, and staff is our number one priority. Graduate students, like undergrads, will be provided with basic personal protective equipment supplies to begin the semester, including face masks and hand sanitizer. Faculty and staff has similarly been provided with PPE supplies, and GAs and RAs may receive additional PPE for use in performing their duties as employees. The Campus Health and Safety Officer, with the assistance of faculty and staff, has provided guidelines for the safe use of all campus facilities, including labs, classrooms, public spaces, etc. If you as an individual are unsure of how many people should be in a room, how close that they may be working together, any that are under your supervision as a GA or an RA, please ask for guidance. That's what we're really looking for, is as much cooperation and as much collaboration as we can get. If you see something that doesn't seem safe or that makes you uncomfortable, please bring it to the attention of your faculty, your department administrators, and me. Next, your educational programs are still incredibly important too. We'll do everything that we can to assist you in reaching your educational goals and keeping you on track to complete your chosen degree program in as timely a fashion as circumstances will permit. We'll continue to deliver all our graduate courses that are required for programs on campus this year. As grad courses tend to be smaller, we hope and anticipate that many may be held in person with appropriate social distance. As faculty are typically at higher risk of complications from COVID-19, I think I can safely assure you that all precautions that can be in place will be in place if a course is scheduled to be delivered in person. In addition, most faculty are preparing for fall semester with an online or hybrid delivery option ready to be deployed in the event of any changes in our modality for the fall semester. Research projects, to the degree that safety protocols allow, are now being resumed across campus and in the field. Some types of research, particularly if it may require travel outside of the region, may continue to be difficult, if not impossible, to keep on track, and may require a student to either revise their projects or limit their field time. I encourage every student to work closely with their advising professor and if needed, to work to adjust research projects in a flexible and collegial fashion to find a workable way forward. Next, a big concern of everyone, I'm sure, is graduate student funding. First, GA and RA appointments will continue to be honored of all research assistants, regardless of their location, if approved by their supervising professors, and all SUNY graduate assistants, TAs, who are able to assume their duties on the ESF campus. Unfortunately, Discovery Challenge funding has been cut dramatically by New York State several weeks ago, and positions tied to Discovery Challenge funds may be cut short or eliminated. We apologize to all who are affected by this unfortunate action that was taken outside of our control. Internally, all GAs shall, even though the college is facing dire financial forecasts, will receive the significant stipend increase promised by the administration this past year. We unfortunately regret rescinding a substantial number of assistantship appointments to new international students, however, as we're already in the process of, because of their inability to get here to ESF. And we're already in the process of appointing replacements for these positions with students who will be able to be on campus this fall. We've also guaranteed each new international student who's had their GA funding rescinded that we'll honor this commitment if they're able to successfully travel to ESF for the spring 2021 semester. Workplace assignments for GAs and RAs are equally important to us. Because many RA appointments are not tied to campus, any RA appointee who may be working remotely, including outside of the USA, may continue to do so with the approval of their MP or the PI on the appropriate research projects. For GAs, because these assignments are tied to potentially in-person teaching roles, all GA appointees must be locally resident prior to commencement of classes on August 24th and in compliance with the governor's quarantine orders if currently residing outside of New York State. Finally, tuition scholarships for Fulbright and other international or local fellowships shall continue to be provided as pledged in the past. And that, I think, is sort of laying out where we are for the fall semester with the things that we recognize are probably most important on your minds. But I'm guessing that there's a lot of other things, so we're going to open it up for questions right now. Oh, actually, pardon me. Kim now has a number of items to address having to do with specific program issues and graduate school procedures.
Great. Thank you very much, Scott. Now I want to introduce Kim Armani. Kim is relatively new to ESF, starting only last August. And she's you're the Assistant Dean of Graduate Studies. Kim has a PhD in marketing from Syracuse University, an MBA also from Syracuse, an MS in nursing from Syracuse University, and also a BS in biology and a BS in nursing from the University of Pennsylvania. And she's going to talk about some other issues associated with graduate students.
Great, thanks, David. I really appreciate having the opportunity to talk to you all today and to answer your questions, and I hope you're all safe and well, and we're looking forward to seeing you back in the fall. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about some of the processes and procedural issues that might be slightly different in the COVID age, and ironically, we're also finding it may make things a little bit easier for everyone involved. And before I launch into that, I want to tell you that our ultimate goal is to keep you progressing towards your completion of your degree and to do that in a very safe way. So everything I'm going to talk about today can be done virtually, and I want you to remember that if you have any questions, and if something doesn't seem, intuitive, ask me. We can do things virtually, and we're working towards that. Over the summer, all our defenses and exams were conducted online, and by all accounts, that really went quite smoothly. As we're moving into the end of the summer and into the fall, and as some of the restrictions, at least in the current moment, permitting some of the defenses and exams to also happen in person. And there's a caveat there. However, if you want to have, or if there's a desire for an in-person defense or exam, or at least some component of it, you need to have agreement from the entire exam committee. You need to make sure that you have a setup that will accommodate all our social distancing and other policies related to COVID. And you also have to have an online option available. This is really prudent in case something changes. We know things are changing day to day and week to week, but also it provides accessibility for people who might feel uncomfortable attending in person or who cannot attend in person. The second thing that I want to talk about is the grad school forms. And I know we have some incoming students who may not be familiar with what I'm talking about in terms of forms, but the grad school has a series of forms, and we use these to guide and document students' progress through their program. In the past, we used paper forms exclusively, and these needed to be submitted to our office in Bray Hall. Now, remember, what we're doing is we're trying to make everything virtual, and so you can still download the forms. The forms are all available on the grad school website, but you can fill them in, either type in the information or you can alternately fill it out, and then you can either upload that information to an email, you can scan the form and send it to us, or some students have been just taking photos of the form with their camera. That's all these things are accessible. If signatures are required, and they are on most of the forms, you can get the signatures either digitally, and or you can just have email approvals sent directly to me or to whoever, if it's the chair of your defense committee or your major professor. But anyways, the key point here is that we don't have to have actual signatures on the form. We're accepting digital signatures or approvals. And then the completed forms can all be returned via email. You do not need to return them directly to our office. So the whole process is virtual in terms of forms. And then, I also want to mention that two of the things, if you're early in your program, you may not be aware of, but those people who are coming near graduation, there's a thesis processing fee, and there's a key return form that you need to have filled out. We're working with University Police and with the cashier's office to do that virtually too. That can all be done either via email or phone calls, and that has really worked quite smoothly over the summer, and I anticipate it will going into the fall. I give you directions about how that works, so don't worry about it right now if you don't know what I'm talking about. And then finally, I want to talk about deadlines. One of the concerns has been that we're starting classes early, and what's going to be the deadline if you're thinking about graduating during the summer. We are honoring our former deadline of August 28th to have all your materials in for graduation, uploading your thesis or dissertation and all the paperwork. That can come in by the 28th, and even though classes are starting on the 24th. So those are just some of the basic things. I'm sure you have more questions, but in summary, I want to say that our office is sincerely committed to making these administrative processes as easy as possible and as safe as possible. And if you have any questions today, please, I'm here to answer them, but I want you to ask questions at any point in time, and I hope that your experience so far has been that's the case. So I think we can answer questions.
Great, thank you, Kim. So we've received a number of questions already, and some of those questions Kim and Scott will be answering. Some of them I think it'll fall on me to answer. But we'll start off with one that a lot of people have been wondering about. Scott, if a graduate student gets sick, especially if they are a TA, and are no longer able to work, what protections are in place to preserve their funding and academic status?
Well, first, if a graduate student does get sick, the very first thing we don't want them to do is to feel obligated to come to campus. You really need to stay at home and get better. That protects you, and it protects everyone else here as part of the campus community. If you find yourself in that situation, the union contract states that you have, if you have served for at least one semester, you have 5 days of paid sick leave. That may not be adequate to cover things under COVID-19. And there may be some negotiability with human resources that they can potentially work out additional terms on that. There are then, after your paid sick leave has expired or has been used up, there are 28 days of unpaid sick leave where you won't lose your position, you won't have a problem, and you can continue potentially to do as much work as possible from home. And that's certainly the case that we hope most people might find themselves in, that while they wouldn't be able to come to campus, they might not be able to work in labs or work on a campus facility or in a campus facility, that they might be able to continue to do so from home.
Good, thank you, Scott. There is a question that was asked, are you still increasing fees for the fall? Our fees are in part set by us, but are also set by SUNY. The SUNY Board of Trustees met yesterday, so we haven't, and we think that they were going to be talking about tuition and fees at that meeting, and we have not yet heard anything. So right now, the fees that we have down on our list are what we had last year. But that may change as we have more information from the Board of Trustees. So there are a couple of questions that are dealing with, and I'll sort of open this up. I have an answer as well, but sort of the role for students that are doing TAs for classes. How much flexibility do the TAs have in terms of delivery of their assigned responsibilities? Do they get the choice of whether their work will be done virtually or done face-to-face? Do you want me to start, or would you like to say anything?
Well, first off, generally speaking, the instructor of record sets the modality for whatever the course is going to be. We have a few situations where we may have a GA who is the instructor of record, and they'll have all that opportunity to set what modality they want to use. In most cases, this is a matter for the instructor of record, and the GA is working in coordination with that instructor. Like in all courses, in all settings, there needs to be a collegial relationship between those two or more individuals to find out what's going to work best. We're not saying that there's going to be a situation where a professor is going to force anybody into a situation that is unsafe or that they are completely uncomfortable with for any variety of reasons. But generally speaking, it's not really the prerogative of the GA to determine the modality of a course.
And I think that's what I've been trying to emphasize in discussions with department chairs and faculty is that there are responsibilities that go to the instructor for a course. I have purposely not told faculty what the expected modality for their courses are. We did emphasize at the beginning that we would be having face-to-face courses as part of our program, and so we wanted people to be engaged in face-to-face courses. Where that's turning out to be the most common is for field labs and other labs that don't lend themselves as well to online instruction. Virtually all of our lectures, certainly for larger courses, are going to be online. And that's primarily because of the reduction in capacity of rooms because of social distancing. So it's imperative that the TA contact the instructor and get real clear as to what the expectations for the course are and what they need to do. I think you answered this a bit before, Kim, but there was a question about time, how much leeway there's going to be with regards to getting paperwork in.
For the summer or the fall?
Both, really.
So typically, for the fall semester, typically, the last day to wrap up, the drop dead date or deadline for wrapping everything up for your degree is the day before or the weekday before classes start for the following semester. To my knowledge, for the fall semester, that probably will be the same. And when people ask me about deadlines for the other pieces of the things you need to do to move towards graduation, I say just back it up from there. So figure out how much time you need to get everything wrapped up by that date. For the summer, again, what we're going to do is we're going to honor that August 28th deadline. And so I'm still getting appointments now for scheduling defenses. So we're getting to the point where I think if you're going to defend, you probably need to make arrangements for the summer to get finished by that August 28th date. But again, this is a conversation with your major professor and your committee. You know, how ready are you? You know, what is their availability? And so those conversations, if they haven't occurred already, should be happening very quickly. And you need to be getting the paperwork in. I'm always available to talk to you on an individual basis about your particular case. So, Scott, did you have any input on that other than, no, I think that's pretty much.
Okay. Now, one of the questions that was asked was, why don't we just do online totally for the first 2 weeks to allow students to quarantine for the first 2 weeks at the beginning of class. The problem with that for us is, again, we have labs, we have other required aspects of our program that don't suit very well to being online. And we have fairly strict rules with regards to the number of hours of the class must meet in order to meet the credit hour requirements. And so for students coming from out of state that are in the governor's list of quarantine states, it will be necessary for you to arrive 2 weeks before classes start in order to go through a quarantine process prior to the beginning of classes. For students in New York State, since there is no quarantine, we're not going to be doing quarantining of all students. So that was one question. Boy, there are just a lot of questions here. It is good. Sure. Okay, this is an important one. One of the questions is there a deadline for when enrolled students will be notified if their classes become hybrid, and what days of the week they will be on campus so students can update work schedules? So we're going to be trying something completely new for ESF, and that is that if students have the capability of organizing their schedules to be completely online, that those students will not have to be treated as residential students. In order to do that, obviously students need to know what the modalities of their courses are. Our plan right now is that on this Friday, we will be putting up a listing of the modalities of all the courses for fall semester. We haven't figured out where it will be posted, but it'll probably be on the registrar's website and maybe on the COVID planning website. But we will have that information available for students to know when classes are meeting and what the modality is. And so then because this hasn't been fully put into MySlice yet. The other thing that is happening, we're going to be allowing students, returning students, to modify their schedules before the beginning of the semester, which historically we have not done. But from August 3rd through August 14th, students will have the opportunity to change their schedules, particularly if that helps them, if they want to be online only, to be able to get to an online situation. Now, for graduate students, this is a little bit more challenging because if you have a GA, you're more than likely going to have to be in residence, depending on how your responsibilities are laid out, in order to meet those responsibilities associated with the GA. Again, we're trying to be as transparent as we can. This is challenging because, again, the decision about the modality for a course was left up to the faculty. It wasn't, nobody was telling them how they were having to teach the course. Very importantly, not all courses will have an online component, so not all students will be able to take a fully online semester this fall. But we're doing our best with this. So check back on Friday, Monday at the absolute latest, and you will be able to find out the information about any class that you are taking in terms of when it will be taught and the modality in which it will be taught.
David,
Yes.
one of the questions that's high on the list is, will you be extending grant funding lines by at least a year since?
Very good. Okay, so the question is whether we would be extending graduate assistantships for some period of time, up to a year perhaps, to take account of the fact of lost timing for research activities. The decision about, so just a couple things about assistantships. Scott did mention this already. We, last fall, we made an agreement to increase assistantships. And so assistantships for master's students went from about 12,000 to 14,000. For PhD students, the stipend went from 14,000 to 16,000. This cost the college about $250,000 in additional funding because we did not reduce any of our assistantships. The actual allocation of assistantships is made according to departmental decisions. We do not have the resources to add more assistantships. If anything, we may have to, at some point in time, reduce the number of assistantships. Our resources have gotten quite a bit lighter as a result of what happened this past spring. And state support is also being reduced. So what I would say is it will be a departmental decision as to whether an assistantship can be extended, realizing that if we extend a student's assistantship, that means that there isn't funding available for a new student to come in. And so we're having to balance the needs of the department, the needs of the students, and continuing growth of programs. Did you want to say anything, Scott, about this?
No, I think that pretty clearly covers it.
Again, we would like to be able to provide us assistantship help for students to as long as we could, but most departments have guidelines. They will try and work with students if they can, but they have limited funds associated with assistantships as well. Yeah, this question has been brought up in several different venues, and the question is, what about childcare? And frankly, ESF has not been in a position up till now, and that hasn't changed, to be providing childcare. And these are unfortunately the types of choices that people have to make as to how they're going to arrange their lives. We're able to provide educational opportunities, we're able to provide stipends for graduate assistants, but things such as childcare are flat out beyond our capabilities at the current time. And so we know that this places a tremendous burden and hardship on students as you're trying to raise children and trying to go to graduate school at the same time. And we don't control what happens in the schools, we don't control what happens with access to childcare, and we are completely unable to make up that difference. Yeah, Scott, would you, there's a question about orientation and the plans for when orientation will be. Can you respond to that?
Yes, I believe orientation will be on Friday, the 19th no?
No. So the orientation, it's going to be primarily online, but there's going to be hopefully synchronous. So it's going to be mainly asynchronous, but there's going to be a synchronous component, which we currently have planned for Monday, the August 17th.
Oh, August. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Pardon me.
And the asynchronous part, we're hoping to open on August 10th. And this is still a work in progress. We'll definitely tell you, give you more details as we have them. But we fully, we are committed to providing an orientation and, again, doing it in a way that's both safe and effective. And so if you're planning, plan on Monday the 17th for, there's going to be some synchronous piece, and then an asynchronous piece, which you can really come into anytime between the 10th and the 17th, and then look, you'll have access to thereafter in your program.
Thank you, Kim. We have a question about for landscape architecture students. As most of you know, we will be beginning the complete refurbishment of Marshall Hall. That will be beginning this fall and will go on for 2 to 2.5 years. And as a result, both the landscape architecture department and the environmental studies department have had to move out of Marshall Hall. Environmental studies faculty are moving over to Baker, second floor offices in Baker, whereas landscape architecture is moving over to 224 Harrison Street, which is in downtown Syracuse. It's about 1 mile away from the campus. Our plan, we've been working with Upstate to provide shuttle service to the site on Harrison Street. And for most undergraduate students, the way they're going to be able to work their classes, they should only have to make that trip once a day at most. Now, for graduate students, the question has to do with parking and how we're going to be handling parking. The landlord at Harrison Street for the evenings is allowing us to have free parking in their parking lot, but during the day we have to pay for parking. Right now, there is no plan to provide any additional funding to help pay for parking for students at Harrison Street. Generally, we don't have that capability, and we realize that this will be a problem. But we will be providing transportation through the shuttle system, and students would be responsible for their own parking during the day if if they chose to park downtown. So this is there's a question there, if a graduate student is immunocompromised and therefore is unable to perform the responsibilities that are required of them as a GA. This one is a very tricky question for us. We hire TAs in particular to help with the delivery of a course. And there are certain responsibilities associated with that course. In general, the instructor will not be asking something of the TAs that the instructor would not do themselves. But if a graduate student says, I cannot do the responsibilities that are required of me, we are placed in a dilemma because we still have to have those responsibilities taken care of. So if a 20-hour assistantship involves 10 hours of grading and 10 hours associated with delivery of the course, and the graduate student says, well, I can't do the delivery part, I can do the grading part, then we can work with the instructor to perhaps split that assignment with somebody else. But we have to be able to deliver our material. We're not trying to put graduate students into harm's way. Again, we are taking precautions with regards to wearing of masks and with regards to social distancing. There was another question about will graduate students have to ride on the bus if we're going out to field labs? And it's going to depend on the transportation capabilities out there. Right now, we're reducing the load on buses by 50%. I kind of made an error in what I stated last week, where the decision about using personal vehicles to go to labs, I said that was up to the instructor and to the chair. Actually, it's college policy that we don't drive personal vehicles to field labs, and there's a variety of reasons for that. That can be waived, but the policy of the college is that personal vehicles are not used. So there's a large sort of winding through that we're going through here. We hire GAs in order to get certain work done. A half-time GA, there's an expectation of 20 hours a week. We don't expect you to work more than 20 hours a week. And if your instructor that you're working with is giving you more than 20 hours a week worth of work, we need to know that, because you're not expected to do that. We are not going to add on additional responsibilities associated with delivery of material just because we're in a situation with COVID. That's not supposed to happen. And if there is a problem happening with that, you first talk to your instructor. If you're not getting satisfaction, you talk with the chair. If you're still not satisfaction, you can talk with Scott Shannon. And so we're cognizant of that, and we want to protect your health. At the same time, if you are unable to do the responsibilities of a GA, we need to know that, and we're not going to be able to pay you to not do the responsibilities that we're asking you. Scott, would you have any further thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think this goes for all of the situations that we're talking about. If you believe that you're placed in an unsafe situation, we really need to know about it. That's absolutely unacceptable for students, for graduate assistants, and for faculty. Our first priority is that everybody stays safe and healthy. We don't want a single person to be sick on this campus that doesn't absolutely, I mean, if it's within our control, we need to try to control it. So we're not trying to place anybody in harm's way. That would be completely irresponsible. And that's something that if there's something that we don't know about it, we need to so that we can try to correct it.
Okay, I'll let you take a shot at this. Scott, there's a question about enforcement of face masks. If you can take a shot at, I mean, what will be the graduate student, a TA's responsibility with regards to enforcement of face masks?
Well, since we are a New York State facility and all of our faculty and staff are New York State employees, and New York State law at this point states that face masks will be worn inside New York State facilities. So that's the law of the land. It's not a question of a local policy, and it's not optional. So if there's a student in your class who is not or refusing to wear a face mask, you have every right to ask them to leave immediately. And if they don't do so, you'll be authorized to contact university police to take care of the situation. It's a little bit awkward, but I really don't think that this is going to be a major problem on this campus. Civil liberties, this is just not one of them. This is about public health and about the safety and health of everyone here on campus.
And yeah, I mean, there was a question of, you know, would we be calling campus police to enforce face mask wearing? No, we're not expecting people to call the police on this. What we will have available, if for some reason a student shows up at a class without face masks, we will have a supply of face masks available that they can utilize. This will be looked upon as a student conduct violation. We'll have to figure out some way of keeping track of this. But we're not trying to do this as a police enforcement activity. We're trying to do this in terms of a social compact between student, faculty, and staff. All will be required to be wearing face masks in classrooms. Probably the instructor would have enough social distancing that it would make sense for them not to wear a face mask to make it easier for them to be heard by students. Realize some of the implications that social distancing is putting on us with respect to classroom capacity. 5 ILIC will be reduced to a maximum of 29 students in the class. 146 Baker is the maximum number of students is 27 students. So there will be substantial distancing by students in the classrooms, and that's again one of the primary reasons that so many lectures are moving to an online format. The responsibility for cleaning up after a classroom is not going to solely fall on the TA. It will fall on the community. We will have disinfectant available for that is basically just spray on and let's sit wet for up to 10 minutes. We are very conscious of the safety issues here. We realize that there is a pandemic going on, and we're trying to be as careful as we can while still maintaining a residential campus that we believe is very, very important for your protection and your benefit and really all the students' benefits. We think that this is an important aspect of this college. It's what makes this college unique. And while the situation is different, we still need to provide that ability for students to get the learning outcomes that they came to ESF for. And so again, we're not asking GAs to be cops. We're not asking faculty members to be cops. We're asking people to embrace that we have a shared responsibility towards maintaining health and safety on campus. And that's how we're going to be working. Well, There's a question about mental health and counseling. We have counseling services. We have 3 counselors that are working full-time at the college. For people that are on campus, virtually all of their activities will be done virtually. There will be relatively few in-person meetings, but counseling services will be available. They've been available in the past, and people will be able to take advantage of them. We realize that there are whole new sets of pressures that are being put on faculty, staff, and students, and I consider GAs to be staff in these situations, and they have full access to the counseling services that we provide. So there is a question of, will we be switching it? Will we be forced to switch during the semester from the modalities that we've laid out now to full online modalities? And frankly, I don't know. I don't have an answer for that. If you ask me to make predictions, I've been wrong way too many times. We have made a decision to go with the programming that we've laid out, in which there's either going to be direct face-to-face instruction, a mixed hybrid approach in which there would be some face-to-face and some online, and then purely online instruction. If we have to change, well, then we'll have to change. But our expectation, and I realize hope is a lousy planning tool, but our expectation is that we'll be able to run the semester. We've laid this out. Faculty know that if the situation changed, they may have to change their teaching modality. But frankly, our fall semesters for many of our programs are heavily lab and field lab oriented. And to try and stop that, I think we would be doing a disservice to our students, and we don't hope to do that. Okay, so there was a question about making Wi-Fi and access to laptops accessible to students. Last spring, SUNY made a substantial purchase of laptop computers, and ESF received 175 laptops. Unfortunately, they arrived the last week of class, so they didn't provide as much help as SUNY was thinking of initially. But so we have these computers sitting and are available primarily for people who do not have access to a laptop, or their laptop is not powerful enough to deal with their coursework. We have 175. I don't see us in a position to buy a whole lot more, but we do have these available for students. Some of them have already been assigned. 20 of them are going up to the Ranger School, and so they're not. We probably have about at least 120 available right now. So. And we're working to expand Wi-Fi capability here on campus. There isn't much we can do about off-campus availability, and so we're doing our best on that. We realize that online is difficult for many types of students. They prefer face-to-face courses, and that's part of the reason that we're trying to make face-to-face as available as possible for students. We see this as not just a health issue, but we also see these as learning concerns, and we're trying to balance that of maintaining safety while also providing these learning opportunities. Oh boy, let's see. There was a question about if a GA has to go into quarantine, will another GA have to backfill behind them? I don't have an answer for that one yet. That would be a hard fill to find, and I don't know exactly how we would do this. My expectation is the responsibility for figuring out how to do that would be the responsibility of the instructor for the course, and that would work with Scott and me and their department chair to figure out if this was a long-term issue or a short-term issue that we're dealing with.
If I can respond a little
Please.
bit. We're going to be as understanding and sympathetic as we can, certainly to anyone who finds themselves to have contracted COVID-19. If that means that if your responsibilities are directly working in a lab class, it's going to be pretty hard for us to backfill, to find somebody in the middle of the semester to cover that. If it means it's something that you might be able to do by pushing off those work responsibilities, whether it's grading homework assignments, grading exams, those sorts of things that are very, very common, I think we will be doing everything that we can to work with you to push those things off until you're able to do them. We've got a lot of flexibility in that. 20 hours a week does not necessarily mean 20 hours each and every week. That could mean if you are sick to the degree where you just can't do anything, you might not do anything for 2 or 3 weeks. And then we'll do everything we can to help you to catch up with your work and to meet those responsibilities over the course of a full semester. It's going to be the same way with students. We know there are going to be some who may get ill and this happens every semester, who miss classes, who miss weeks of class. But we try to do the best we can to accommodate that situation. There's another question in here about if we have GAs who are immunocompromised. Certainly, anybody in that situation, we're not going to push you to take a position that places you in a position where you're going to potentially suffer dire consequences because of your current immunocompromised state. Same thing goes for if you are a responsible caregiver for immunocompromised children or case-by-case basis.
Okay, we want to take a slight break here. This semester, there's going to be what's called the Adirondack semester that'll be taught up at the Adirondack Ecological Center in the fall, and I believe that we're going to get a presentation about that now. Is that correct?
Well, we're at least going to make the announcement.
Okay, go ahead, Scott.
And I have a couple of quick little details. It will be live and in person in the heart of the Adirondack Park at the AEC. You'll be able to earn up to 15 credit hours during that semester. And you'll immerse yourself in the Adirondack in issues of sustainable development, environmental ethics, ecological research methods, diverse perspectives on a common landscape, using past experiences to inform future management, and professional writing and presentation skills. There will be both graduate and undergraduate options available. If your program has the flexibility to be able to accommodate this might be a very, I think, interesting way to spend the fall semester in a place where essentially COVID-19 practically doesn't exist right now. And there will be significant precautions taken essentially to self-isolate in the middle of the Adirondacks.
Okay. So if you're interested in that program, you should contact Paul Hay at the AEC. I don't have Paul's email, but that's easily found.
Yes.
Okay, we have about 5 more minutes here. And again, trying to figure out what makes sense to be asking about. I guess we get it. I mean, there's a perception out there that we don't realize that this has been hard on graduate students, and that their research has been impacted, and that life is going to be a little bit different. We realize that this is the case. We also realize that the state is going through some fairly severe budget crises, and we're trying to work through this as a college in terms of providing funding for students and trying to work with students on this. But again, these are almost existential crises, questions that we're having to deal with as a campus. We have taken account of this with regards to faculty. For junior faculty, they've received an extended time towards promotion and tenure. And again, we're not trying to push graduate students out, but we have limited capabilities of providing assistantships for graduate students. And again, I want to emphasize that providing more assistantship for graduate students that are currently here limits our ability to bring in new graduate students. And it's a pipeline. Ideally, graduate students are working with their major professors in terms of providing RA funding, because GA funding is always supposed to be for a somewhat limited time. So, I mean, this is challenging for everyone, and we get that. And we're trying to deal within the financial limitations that we have to satisfy the needs of as many people as we can. Okay. I think as we start to wind down, Kim, do you have any final comments that you would like to make?
Well, I think just going back to my, kind of how I wrapped up my little synopsis, that we are here. I'm in the office now on Wednesdays, but I'm totally accessible. I'm working from home, and please, if you have questions, if you have concerns, I would really encourage you to share them with me. When I can help, I will. When I can identify somebody else who can help, I'll do that. We're here to help you. Again, we don't want to see you get caught up. We want to see you successful in completing your degree and completing your studies, and we'll do everything in our power to do so. So I'm just encouraging good communication.
Thank you. Scott?
There was one question about international graduate students who have GAs. Someone was asking if they have a Social Security number and a U.S. bank account, whether they would be able to assume their duties as a GA while they're abroad. Unfortunately, we've been advised by college counsel that that's not possible. The graduate students who are serving as state GAs need to be accessible to campus, and they need to be in New York State. So that's a bit unfortunate. There's another question here about whether graduation timeline limits will be extended for grads. That's an absolute yes. We can't guarantee how much additional funding time may be added. That's really on a case-by-case basis of those individual GAs working with their departments. In many cases, I'm sure that will be possible. In some others, it may not be. But we will do the best to be as compassionate and as understanding of your situations as we can.
Thank you, Scott. So I'd like to thank the panel today, Kim and Scott, the folks from Christopher, ESF TV, that has been putting on these presentations for us, these town halls. We do have a schedule that are coming up of future town halls. Next week, or on the 29th, we'll be talking about health and safety. August 5th, dealing with student life, and then August 12th, the financial situation of the college and how we're going forward. Thank you all for attending. You've asked an awful lot of questions. We will save these. We will try and answer as many as we can. Again, I mean, one of the things that I really do want to emphasize, we're all in this together. I get it that GAs feel that they're on the front line, but faculty are on the front line, staff is on the front line. We are concerned about people's health and safety, and we are going to do as much as we can to ensure health and safety. So with that, thank you all for tuning in, and we'll talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.